Does your back hurt? Did you see an ad for a back brace that would help alleviate the pain? Is that a good idea? So here to talk about whether or not we should be immobilizing our spines with back braces is our seating guru, Dr. Turner Osler. So Dr. Osler, what do you think about back braces?
First of all, your back isn't where most people think it is. You can feel those vertebral spines as you march down somebody's back, but that's not the back. The back is the big vertebrae that are, the size of your fist by the time you get down to the lumbar vertebrae. And if you look at the human body in cross section with a CAT scan or in the operating room or whatever, the spine actually runs down the middle of the body. It's the central strut from which all of the rest of the body is suspended. So the idea that you can brace the back is kind of optimistic, because the back is like packaged in all of this squishy muscles, guts, God knows what's. And so the business of making the spine, holding the spine steady, is a very heavy lift. And I know this because, in my incarnation as a trauma surgeon, people would have the worst day of their life on their motorcycle, or something would go wrong in a high-speed car thing or whatever, and they would have fractures of their vertebrae. They have blowout fractures, or there are a lot of different geometries for fracturing your vertebrae. But once the vertebrae are broken, this is a huge problem, because your spinal cord runs through a hole that's in the back of each vertebrae. And so if anything shifts, you become a para or a quad or something. So it's the business of keeping the spine stable when it's been fractured is of immense importance to people in the trauma game, because we want to protect people's spinal cord. So we're very interested in being able to hold the spine still as the bones heal when you have an unstable vertebral fracture. And it's hard to hold those bones still. We have a variety of tricks. One is the so-called clamshell brace, where you have the physical therapy people show up, and they with big sheets of plastic, and they mold it around the thorax, and they in two pieces that fit together, and then they cinch it together with a cinch strap to kind of try and keep people's spines still enough that their cords are protected. It takes hours, and I don't know what the hospital charges, but I'm sure it's thousands of dollars to make a clamshell brace to try and hold somebody's spine still. So the idea that you're going to buy some bit of fabric with a plastic snap and an adjustment or two off of Amazon for $20 and immobilize your spine is awfully optimistic, right to the point of silly.
I'm going to read you something that I found online that was promoting a back brace. It said, the back brace can help alleviate muscle tension by reducing pressure on the spine, by reducing the amount of strength needed in the muscle to support the spinal column. I mean, that kind of flies in the face of everything you know about fitness, which is that you need the muscle tone to keep everything sort of organized. Even though it's squishy, the muscles do help.
Well, the person who wrote that ad copy, I guarantee you, has not been to medical school. And because if they've been to medical school, why are they writing ad copy? These are fanciful ideas that are constructed to sell stuff online. I've looked into it, and there are no serious studies of any of these back braces that find that they do any good. Now, they're not actually a medical device, so they don't attract the attention of government regulators, and they're able to say anything they want about this back brace will fix this, that, or the other thing. But really, from first principles, you cannot immobilize the spine unless you're willing to get in there with plates and screws and do several hours of surgery. Or for the cervical spine, and this is like an area that we're extremely interested in, because if somebody has an unstable cervical fracture, then they become a quad if there's any wiggle room left. And so for those people, we not only give them this chest thing, but we take what's called a halo, a ring of steel, and put it around their head, and then we drive spikes into the skull. Can you do that? You can do that. You need anesthesia. But once you have purchase on the skull, then you can, like with an erector set, kind of arrange for the head not to move and attach it to the. It's complicated, and keeping it adjusted in a way that's safe is extremely tough. Just to say, it's possible to. We have techniques to immobilize the spine, but definitely not for civilian use, and you can't buy it on Amazon.
But my question is, do we want to weaken our muscles?
No,
Because
and the reason people have back pain is because they haven't moved enough. And so by putting the muscles to rest, and we know this because if you've ever seen or ever had a broken arm or seen somebody who has, you put it in a cast for 6 weeks and you come back 6 weeks later, and what you have left, I have had children scream when they see their arm and burst into tears because it doesn't. They don't know that it's going to get back to normal, and as far as they can tell, it's frightening, and it is. And just so
you're talking about atrophy,
right, and the atrophy
muscles.
the atrophy is profound, and the extremity doesn't match, and it's horrifying for parents and kids to see. But those of us in the game know that it's going to get better. So, okay, fine. But just so for any muscle that you put to rest, as Hippocrates observed, that which is used develops, and that which is not used wastes away, which sounds like the body is lazy or stupid, but this is not true. The body is exquisitely brilliant. If you're not using a muscle, the body looks around and says, well, I guess I didn't need that muscle to start with. And so it dissolves the muscle and sends that protein someplace where it can do more good. So it's an adaptive response of the body to, if you're not using a muscle, to dissolve it. But what we know is if your posture is to be good and your back pain is to go away, you need a strong musculature to let you sit in a balanced posture and to walk in a balanced way. Every physical therapist knows that if you have a knee injury, what you need is a strong musculature around the knee to provide more than adequate strength to hold the knee in its proper configuration as the cartilage and bone get back to normal. Just so with somebody who's having back problems, if you have a strong enough musculature to keep your bony alignment, everything will get better. But if you let the muscles become progressively weakened by supporting them, there is no end in sight. You will have perhaps back pain for the rest of your life. And we're becoming, article in the Lancet from 2017, we no longer think of back pain as an injury that gets better and you're back to normal. We think of back pain as a continuing low-level problem that waxes and wanes. And in order to break that cycle, one needs to, develop good posture and a strong core. And these things will allow your spine to, get back to your birthright of the hunter-gatherer spine that just works fine. These problems are unknown among the Hadza and other people that don't sit slumped in chairs for 10 hours a day. Our problems are entirely of our own making when it comes to back pain.
I'm thinking also that eventually you can risk contractures. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're constantly, then you can't really straighten.
Well, no. If you look at old women and old men, you sometimes see the dowager hump, the bump in the back, which comes from a lifetime of collapsed posture. And if you take somebody with that bony configuration, over time you get bony spurs growing from one vertebra to the next until finally they meet, and then the vertebrae can no longer move. They are cemented together with bone, and now you're pretty much out of options. And it's a huge problem, because if you have a spine that's in this weird configuration and you're an old person and spend a lot of time in bed, and have thin skin. Well, now the bedclothes can wear through the skin, and now you have an ulcer, and pretty soon you have some orthopedic surgeon carving out, and plastic surgeons swinging flaps. And a bed sore costs on average $600,000 to fix.
Wow.
So these are immense problems that is why healthcare is so expensive in the United States, because we haven't dealt with the basics, give people good posture until the day they die. Well, they get bunions and now we're operating on their feet, and, and on and on. But the business of having people with deformed spines and trying to take care of them in a nursing home, it's just so much can go wrong.
Yes, I very often tell people I probably sound like everybody's mother, but your mother was right. If you want to have a happy life, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, maintain good posture.
Right, but you can't do that as an act of will, because you'll be distracted and something else will happen. So the way to have good posture is not to I love this book. It's a book entitled Stand Up Straight, about the business of trying to force people to have better posture. It's a mug's game. You cannot win. You have to change the environment so people's posture naturally responds by being excellent. How do you do that? Well, you just have to have a built environment that encourages good posture. Certainly, our office chairs that encourage terrible posture is a bad place to be starting from.
Yes, I think we have a ways to go, and I think we need to rethink the tools that we are really forced to use on a daily basis. I mean, you kind of have to use a computer. Even if you're not an office worker, that's how you do your banking now. People are just pushing you online
Your
more and more.
taxes, Zooming with your grandmother. I mean, you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it. And, we've boxed ourselves in, and we need to box ourselves out. And I think the way to do that is something you mentioned a long time ago, the airbags. If people are driving drunk, you have to make the car safer. And I think in the same way, we need to question the office environment, our entire environment in terms of our health.
If we could make office furniture that encouraged people to move rather than sit inertly, it would be revolutionary.
Yes. Well, from your lips to God's ears. Thank you so much for telling us about these issues and being our expert. We appreciate it.
Happy to do it anytime, Deborah.